Hello. Hi, Supriya. Good evening.
Hi, hi Celine.
Yeah, hi. So I think only you have joined, so as usual, we'll wait for some time.
Yeah, okay. How you pronounce your name? Jeslu?
Yeah, Jeslu.
Jeslu. Okay.
Did you just come back from work now?
Yeah,
Where are you working?
I'm working in Noida for Noida International Airport.
Okay, that's great.
Yeah.
Are you working as a urban planner?
Yes, as an urban planner, but right now I am in infrastructure team and project management.
That's nice. I had also worked like 2 years before I joined IIT Kharagpur. I was working I'm basically from Kerala, so in the airports in Kerala we were working.
Okay,
In Nepal also we had one airport project which was happening, but I left by that time. Delhi also we had some minor works happening.
okay, nice. So you didn't like work and
No,
moved
I
to.
liked it. I just wanted to explore more. That's it. It was fun. I was mainly involved in like two airports in Kerala itself, so that was fun. And Bangalore airport also, our team was involved. So yeah, I think similar, like infrastructure development in these airports, and I was part of the project management team.
Okay, great.
Okay, we'll begin then. So good evening, Supriya, once again, and welcome to today's tutorial on urban utilities planning and water supply sanitation and drainage. I'll go into full screen. Yeah, now full screen slides are visible, right?
Yes, it is visible.
So let's proceed. So this week, which is week 11, which is the second last week of tutorials, so we mainly looked into two aspects, that is sewage disposal and treatment. So we mainly looked into the artificial methods and the natural methods and the different artificial methods. So artificial method, we went detailed into what are the primary, secondary, and advanced methods. So this times it's a bit of more of bioreactors and how do all the processes happen. So it's a bit more detailed onto that than an urban planning level. It's about all these sequence which are there. That is what we discussed. So let's try to solve certain questions. Sorry. Yeah. So starting with the first question, what is sewage sickness? So is it the four options are a septic sewage? Yeah. So Priya, do you want to attempt this question?
Option D is correct.
Okay. Did you attend yesterday's tutorial?
Yeah, I attended yesterday's also.
Yeah, so then it would be repetition because there are not much numericals in this week's. Like there were
Okay.
no numericals at all. So I think theory, almost all questions will be repetitive only. So
No
please bear
problem.
with
It
me.
will be fixed in my mind for exam.
Okay, that's good then. Yeah, so it is soil pores getting clogged during sewage treatment. Yeah, so that is right. So okay, so to come out with what is sewage farming? Like how do we come to the sewage sickness? What causes sickness? There was something.
Sewage farming is done in four types. I think
Okay.
name I could not recall. Ridge one is Ridge one.
Huh. Yes, there are multiple ways of doing it, but
One
basically it
is
is,
there. Yeah.
yeah, so basically we are using sewage in order to farm. That is, to promote farming, we're using sewage. Like sewage is used to grow crops. So that is the whole idea of sewage farming. And yeah, as you said, there are multiple A, B, C, D, multiple methods like ridge. Yeah, we have a ridge, and then okay, we'll come into those in the later questions. But yeah, there are multiple methods by which we can use sewage to grow crops. So, why this sewage sickness is important is because we should know, like while we are doing sewage farming, we should know when to stop or what are the conditions that is happening in the soil. Because sometimes, due to excess sewage farming, that is what is happening over here. The soil pores are getting clogged because during sewage farming, because of something excess or something going wrong over there. So this is very bad because it leads to anaerobic conditions, and usually this anaerobic conditions are also accompanied with methane gas is produced, so we'll get a foul odor. So we'll know it by the smell itself that something is going wrong. So actual sewage farming, you should not get a very bad odor also. So yeah, so that's why sewage sickness is important. So it's like an indicator saying us that okay, we need to unclog the pores or we need to look into the method that we're using for sewage farming. Like basically we should not let sewage sickness to happen. Okay, let's proceed. So yeah, so this is sewage farming. Where sewage is used for growing crops, and land acts as a filter in this regard. That is through the land when that so base. So one of the methods we learned, if you have an underground uh, subsoil pipe which is there, then from here from here sewage water is taken into to grow crops like this. So basically, land is acting as a filter in order to filter out all the unwanted materials from the sewage, and it's used for farming. So this is one method, as there are other methods also. And yeah, so this is sewage sickness when pores continuously decrease and soil gets clogged by deposition of different solids. So when land is filtering because of all the solids which are uh, getting clogged into the soil, because of that, there is soil clogging which is happening, and air will not be able to circulate and it leads to anaerobic conditions. And yeah, so this produces hydrogen sulfide gas, so which is not good. And how can we prevent it? So we can this can be prevented by the first, like primarily after primary treatment itself, like sewage is applied after primary treatment and removal of suspended solids. So we don't directly take it, but we do some treatment and only then take it. Or the other method can be like soil itself, we can keep plowing, like to allow to unclog this. So you plow the soil, or crop rotation can be one method. So in that way also, when we are doing crop rotation, it gets unclogged. Or we can provide a drainage system by which this can be taken out. So providing an under drainage system is also one method by which we can solve it. Fine. So let's proceed further. Identify the type of natural method of sewage treatment. So one image is given. So which is this?
This one is Ridge.
Okay.
A.
Okay, a ridge. Which is ridge and which is furrow over here? Like this is what?
Ridge.
Okay, so this is ridge and this is furrow. Fine.
Yeah.
And what is flooding? Like how does flooding look like?
Flooding, plants will be grown in the furrow pipe,
Yeah,
furrow part.
exactly. Plants will be over here in flooding, so it's basically flooding. And lagooning, how does that look like?
Lagoon is how to explain you?
Yeah, you basically you have a big pond or you
Yeah,
have a lagoon kind like, and lagoons are formed in the side. So you have something like this, and
yeah,
then
yeah.
in the sides we can see all this waste which are there, like lagoon formations happen over there. And managed turf, it's managed turf. Hello, hello, Supriya, you there?
Yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So what is managed turf?
Managed of
Yeah, so it's basically a turf. Again, you use waste, sewage water in order to manage it. So you have different forms of irrigation methods by which you pour water onto that. So yeah, so this we've already discussed. That is, this is flooding, and yes, there's subsoil irrigation also, which was not there in the option, but this is also possible that we just pass sewage through it. So from here, it will the crops will get it, and there's surface irrigation also, where you have parallel drainages with drainage lines which are constructed and sewage flows over the land like this. So that is also there. Yeah, so this is slight change. Yeah, so this is the surface turfing. Like basically, effluent is being sprayed on top on a turf or any other surface material. So from top, we are spraying it just like any other sprinkler system or any normal system. Yeah, and this is the lagoons which we were discussing. So it's a spray irrigation can be used for surface turfs also. Fine. So those are the so this is what are the different methods we were talking about. So around six methods, that is surface irrigation, subsoil irrigation, flooding, and then now here ridge and furrows, spray irrigation, and lagooning. So six types of sewage farming we have learned. Fine, let's proceed to question three. The process involved in aerobic type of biological sewage treatment are. So this is a bit tricky question. So you can so any guesses like what is it hydrolysis? Okay, firstly, what is hydrolysis?
biooxidation. I know
Okay, what is
biosynthesis.
biooxidation?
Biooxidation is using oxygen for decomposition.
Okay.
Cell, yeah.
What decomposes to what?
In this much, I don't remember.
Okay, okay. We'll come to that. So
Yeah.
basically, let's look into this. Slide change. One sec. Today my internet is a bit poor, I think. Yeah. So yeah, so let's start with biooxidation then. Biooxidation, yeah. So basically the soluble organic matter is oxidized. So you have organic matter which is oxidized into the different forms of that. So that is biooxidation which is happening. And hydrolysis basically converts different suspended organic matter into soluble organic matter. So if you observe, like, and then this soluble organic matter, if we're using biooxidation, we can again oxidize and break. So oxidization is again breaking it down into different components. Like for instance, this is carbon dioxide and this is water. So we can just remove it off, and what is remaining is only like methane, ammonia, or a nitrate compound which we are getting. So yeah, so that is hydrolysis. Then your bioreduction. So bioreduction basically reduces the number of microorganisms which is there. It's again a breaking down mechanism itself which creates certain byproducts. And then there's biosynthesis, which is conversion of oxidized material into microbial biomass. So synthesis, this is the definition for biosynthesis. And then we have glycolysis, which breaks glucose into two to three carbon components and generates energy. So in this biological treatment, obviously we do not have glycolysis which is happening because you don't have a glucose and you don't need to break it down into. So that is like that is absolutely out of question, that is not there. Then what happens? So usually, so this is what you have learned. So the process which happens is we have biological organisms and they're allowed to consume organic matter. So how do we, so this is the main process which is happening. Now, how does this happen? Like they just cannot consume the organic matter which is there just like that. So these organisms, they secrete enzymes which dissolve the organic matter. So if you observe, first there's one dissolving which is happening. So some suspended organic matter is being changed into some dissolved or soluble organic matter, like some process is happening over there. So that is the first process which is happening. And then this is absorbed by organisms through their cell as food. So after that, they eat it as food. So okay. So yeah. So after that they eat it as food. So something, so they're eating it basically. So as food they're eating. So some process there is also happening. And after that these organisms grow and multiply. So there are more organisms. So again the process keeps continuing. So the third process is they grow and multiply. So if you observe here again in this figure, it's shown. So first, this suspended organic matter to change into soluble organic matter, we call it hydrolysis. So that we have already learned. That is, hydrolysis converts suspended organic matter into soluble organic matter. So our first step is clear. So that is basically, this is hydrolysis which is happening. Fine. Now, what is the second step which is happening? So now this soluble organic matter, there are two things which are happening. So now this is soluble organic matter. Now here there is a bio-oxidation also which is happening over the here, because see, carbonious BOD is a sum of oxygen utilized during bio-oxidation of organic matter and during auto-oxidation of organic. But basically there's some oxidation which is happening. So just after this oxidation only there is biosynthesis and bioreduction which is happening. So biosynthesis, so it's, if you're following this curve, that is, this is the actual curve, this is a byproduct which is formed, or some amount of energy is being released, so that we are not bothered. This is the main direction which we are interested in. So here, if you observe, there is a bio-oxidation which is happening, and then there's a biosynthesis also which is happening. So the order goes like hydrolysis becomes our first one, and bio-oxidation becomes a second process, and biosynthesis becomes our third process. So this is what happens over here. Fine. Any doubts in this? Okay, so we can proceed. So yeah, so coming back to the question over here, the answer would be C, that is hydrolysis, bio oxidation, and biosynthesis. Fine. Okay.
Yeah, I lost my network, that's why.
Oh, I didn't notice. Do you want me to repeat, or was it okay?
I think you were about to complete in the
Okay. So you
last
heard.
question. Yeah,
Okay, okay, fine. So I'm proceeding further.
yeah, no problem.
So, which of the statements are correct about biology?
You go back once from where I lost, I will tell you. Till hydrolysis, I was there. After that, you can explain the reduction and
Okay, okay.
biosynthesis.
Yeah, that is the main part. Yeah, so I'll explain that once more. Yeah, that's very important. Yeah, so basically, so hydrolysis is there in our, so converting suspended matter to organic matter, there's a hydrolysis also. Hydrolysis, the name of that process which happens is hydrolysis. Then there is also bio-oxidation which is happening. So if you observe over here, during bio-oxidation is when different carbonic BOD particles are being utilized. So yeah, so there is a bio-oxidation also which is happening, and then there is a biosynthesis also which is happening. So biosynthesis, again, you're converting this oxidized material into microbiome. So when it what do you say, when these organisms consume these matter, and then they are reproducing again, so that's when all this oxidized material is again being converted into microbial mass. So more organisms are being there, right? So that conversion, so a biosynthesis or generation of more microbial mass is happening over there. So there's a biosynthesis also which is happening. So the main processes which are happening over here is you have hydrolysis, that is, you have hydrolysis, and then you have bio-oxidation which is happening, and then you have a biosynthesis also which is happening. So that is what the question is also asking. What are the different processes involved in aerobic type of biological sewage treatment? And so yeah, so again, notice it's for aerobic that is being questioned. So that's why I was explaining with respect to this. So this is the aerobic process which is happening. So yeah, so here we have hydrolysis, bio-oxidation, and biosynthesis. These are the three prominent processes which are happening there. Okay,
Yeah, thank you.
let's proceed. So question 4, which statement or statements are incorrect about the biological treatment process? So let's go by option. The first one is biological sewage treatment involves aerobic or anaerobic microorganisms to decompose the organic and inorganic particles of sewage. Is that right?
It involves aerobic and anaerobic, but
Yeah,
decomposition is for, I think, only organic, not inorganic.
correct. Decomposition is only for organic. So usually for inorganic particles, what do we usually do? How do we remove it usually?
In secondary treatment, I guess.
No, yeah, in primary itself, we can do some filtration, some what you say, that meshes and all that, and we can remove that there itself, like gritting. We've learned those, right? So in yeah,
Yes.
so that for any chemical reaction which is usually involved, it's mainly for organic. But the other physical forms of removal, it's for inorganic. Like that's an easy way to remember. Usually that is how it happens. Like obviously there might be some exceptional cases also, but mostly for organic, if some decomposition or some chemical reaction is happening, especially if it involves microorganisms, then it is only organic. It won't be inorganic. So
Okay.
yeah, so the first one is incorrect. Second one, biological sewage treatment involves activated sludge process, sequencing batch reactor, and membrane bioreactor.
Yes.
Yeah, so these we have learned, like
Is there? Yeah, it is.
yeah, all these are there, like activated sludge, sequencing batch, and membrane. So yeah, last lecture is dedicated for these two. So this is there. Now, nitrogenous compounds are released during anaerobic process mostly.
Nitrogen. Nitrogen is aerobic, not anaerobic. Wrong.
Okay, correct. Yeah, this is wrong. So nitrogen is produced, nitrogenous compounds are released during anaerobic. It is released during aerobic, but also during anaerobic, some amounts. If you observe over here, let's go back to this one. Yeah, so you have, if you observe, so this is our anaerobic process which is happening. So you do have NH3 which is being produced as a byproduct, and also basically it's ammonia, and ammonia which is coming. So again, it's a nitrogen form. Here also it is a nitrate which is formed, like ammonia converted to nitrate. So yeah, so in both it is involved actually, and it's not limited to but yeah, mostly if the mostly is there, then mainly for aerobic process it is definitely there. Anaerobic process also as a byproduct it is there. Now so again, basically this is wrong. Now bioreduction of soluble organic matter results in the release of hydrogen sulfide, methane, water, ammonia, and energy. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so bioreduction of soluble organic matter results in the release of hydrogen sulfate, methane, water, ammonia, and energy. Yeah, so that one, let's go back here and yeah, so that is also correct. Yeah, here we have just seen that. Yeah, so we just saw it over here. That is carbon dioxide, water, methane, and energy. So that is also correct. Fine, let's go back. So that's correct. Now, methane production is achieved by aerobic process.
It's wrong. Methane is not there.
Yeah, so where does it usually happen? It happens in the anaerobic processes.
Yeah.
So that is one major, like it's in fact one indicator of anaerobic process also. Like when methane is produced, then there's methane is produced. So yeah, so basically this is again wrong. So yeah, so the answer would be what? Which is the following is incorrect is what they have asked. So A is incorrect, C is incorrect, E is incorrect. So option D is the right answer. Fine, let's proceed further. Oxygen saturation level is minimum in which of the following? Clear water zone, degradation zone, active decomposition zone, recovery zone.
I'm not sure about this.
Okay, this is yeah. So what are these zones? Firstly, what are the different zones that we are talking about?
Mm, these zones are related to the sequence of treating the sewage water?
Mm, okay. Okay, yeah, it is. So yeah, so sewage, it's a purification method. So self purification method mainly, like four zones by which four zones of undergoing self purification. So yeah,
Yes.
you're right. So yeah, exactly, you're right. So it's you're not treating it, but it's a natural process, and for the normal what do you say, the place where we are like the valley or river or water body that uh, we are pumping our sewage into. So this is a self purification process for that. And
Yeah,
what will
it was there in the lecture, the
yes.
natural process.
Yes, yes, exactly. So let's see that in detail. So you have these different zones. So as you rightly said, in the water body, the different zones which are there. So you start with the degradation zone, which is near the outfall. So outfall means where it's reaching onto the water body, like from the sewage system or the sewer, you're going onto the water body. So there itself, it's a degradation zone. So the water is very turbid, dark color because it's the sewage water which is coming. So with full concentration, it comes into that zone. And then you have the active decomposition zone, which is again a bit diluted, so it becomes grayish, and then there are odors of hydrogen sulfide and scum may also be seen. Then after that, again, you go further, so you have the recovery zone, so it gets better, and there's stabilization which is happening, and the oxygen demand also reduces, and then there's more dissolved oxygen which is there. And there's a the last one will be the clean water zone where the stream is in the natural condition. So this is what we have learned. So the question here asks us about the oxygen saturation level and where will it be minimum. So actually, the oxygen saturation level would be minimum in the active decomposition zone. Now, why? Because there's a lot of decomposition and which is happening over there. So the oxygen concentration will be minimum over here. So if you look, the dissolved oxygen content is what is shown in this line. So in the clear water zone, it is 100%, obviously, and in and then when it comes to zone of degradation, it is slowly degrading the oxygen concentration which is happening. And finally, when it reaches the active decomposition zone, it's the minimum. And then it starts to recover. So then it slowly increases. So that's why here in the recovery zone, it is about 40%. And then finally, again, it reaches the normal, it recovers back to the normal one. So the answer for this particular question is it is the active decomposition zone.
Yes.
Okay, we are proceeding further. Identify the curves in dissolved oxygen versus time plot. Okay, so what is DO over here?
Dissolved
Dissolved
oxygen.
oxygen, yeah. And basically, with respect to time or day, how it varies is what is asked. So, yeah, so what is A?
A is equilibrium, DO concentration.
Yeah, so that is, it's the equilibrium rate that we are talking about. So that makes sense. Okay, not supposed to mark here. Yeah, okay, A is equilibrium concentration. Then, yeah, so equilibrium DO, fine. What is B?
Oxygen sag curve.
Yeah, so B is the oxygen sag curve, like it's sagging over there. Yeah, so B is the oxygen sag curve. And what is C?
C.
Yeah, so basic,
Reoxygenation
correct,
curve.
correct. It's the oxygen which is being added. So the slope of this gives the rate in which oxygen is being added. So yeah, so C is the reoxygenation. So yeah, and deoxygenation and reoxygenation, you know, right? What it means.
You can explain
Yeah, so
once.
deoxygenation means you're removing oxygen which is there, and reoxygenation means you're adding more
Okay.
oxygen. So yeah,
Yeah.
so this is the rate. So C is addition. So reoxygenation. And what is D?
BOD curve.
Yeah, so D is the BOD curve. So at the rate of this rate of BOD curve will give us the amount of oxygen which is depleting also, like which is reduced. So this is what we have learned in our lecture also. So yeah, so this is what I was explaining. Slope of this curve will give us the addition of oxygen, and slope of this will give the depletion of oxygen. This will dissolved oxygen or the oxygen sag curve. So two names it is known. And yeah, so this is the BOD curve, and yeah, so equilibrium DO concentration. Fine. So let's proceed further. Match the following and mark the option for the correct match. So surface, yeah, so you can attempt this question.
Yes. S is one.
Surface irrigation is sewage filled.
Um, S lagooning
Oh,
is
sorry. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So S is lagooning, which is sewage is filled in ponds between the dikes. Okay. Okay, that's what you're saying. Fine.
and subsoil Q is 1 second. P is 2.
P is 2. Surface irrigation is sewage flows over land from one drain to another. Okay. P is 2. Fine.
And subsoil will be impermeable ponds, porous pipes. Subsoil Q4.
Subsoil Q is
4.
4 or 3?
4.
4. Okay. So that means sewage flow through porous pipes. Okay, correct.
And flooding is filled in impermeable ponds.
Okay. Fine. R is 3. And okay, so you marked everything. Fine. So which option will that be then? P is 2 and
Of the option.
none of the options. No, yeah. So maybe then you need to rethink. Something is wrong.
Yes. I think I'm wrong with R and S.
Yeah, you're correct. You're wrong with R and S. Okay, so let's see what went wrong. Yeah. So basically, flooding we learned. So if we have something like this, then we will grow crops over here. So you basically have water which is there. So it is
Yeah.
not for it is not an impermeable plot. It is normal soil only, but we are flooding it, like basically we are creating creating a structure like this, and then we are flooding it over here. So
Yeah.
basically it will be yeah, so it will be this one. Sewage is filled in ponds between the dikes. So you have certain dikes, it's filled here, and plants are grown over here. So that is, and lagooning is where you have the impermeable ponds, because in lagooning you have the impermeable ponds, so it doesn't, only the water stays over there, and all the sewage which is there gets formed or forms a lagoon around it. So you can remove that off. So that is what is lagooning. Fine. So rest everything was correct. So yeah. So again, yeah, to mark. So then surface irrigation would, uh, yeah. So surface irrigation would be, yeah. So this is over the land surface, and then this is correct through permeable pipe. So that works out to option B actually.
Yes.
Okay. Right. So let's proceed. Now mark the correct statements for sewage treatment. Primary clarification involves the settlement of suspended solids. Okay, let's go option by option. Is the first one correct?
1 second. No, it's not correct.
What is primary clarification? Or what is clarification?
Suspended solids. Yeah, it comes under primary
It is
after
correct.
ethanol. Yes.
Yeah, it is correct. So clarification involves settlement of suspended solids, and primary clarification, it's basically we are doing it first. So that's what primary and secondary, the only difference is in primary, that is the initial thing that we do for suspended solids, and in secondary, before secondary we do some biological reactions and all, and due to biological reaction there is again some suspended solids which are there, which we need to remove, and that is mainly organic suspended solids, so that we need to remove. So we use the secondary clarification. So this option is correct. That is, primary clarification involves settlement of suspended solids. And If we cannot do this using clarification, then there are other methods which we will come into. Like we have learned in some of our questions also, we'll come into this. So this is in fact the primary step. Now, secondary clarification involves removal of slimy organic matter through anaerobic process. Is that correct?
Yes. No, through aerobic, not
Ha,
anaerobic.
exactly. So this is partly correct because it involves removal of slimy organic matter. This part is correct, but it is removed through an aerobic process and not through an anaerobic process. So yeah, so this is not so partly correct. So it's not correct. Now, sludge digestion involves a digestion of organic and inorganic sludge from primary and secondary clarifiers. Is that correct?
No, no, it's wrong.
Why?
Organic sludge both won't come here.
Yeah, so it will only be organic. That is sludge. We are talking about digestion. So sludge digestion is only for organic. Inorganic, as discussed, we cannot do it through any biological processes like this. Now, grit removal process involves the removal of coarse inorganic particles. Is that right?
Yes.
Yes, so that is right. So for inorganic particles, we use all this grit removal. And screening process involves the removal of large size floating material through gratings.
Yeah, correct.
That is also right. So you have certain gratings and then large size floating materials we can remove. There was one more thing, skimming. What was that?
Skimming is foam and all, what is oil
We
grease.
use exactly. So it's basically for what do you say? Some things which float, like some liquids which float on the water, like oil or foam or some other liquid like that. So you basically skim it on from the surface of the water. So screening is where you use a screen and remove these large size floating materials. Skimming is where you just skim it off from the surface. Basically, it's used for liquids with different densities, so it'll be separated in the water. So you can remove it mainly for oil, grease, or any other impurities which are there. Fine. So yeah, so the answer for this one, the correct statement would be A is correct, B is correct, E is correct. So option D, A, D, E. Right. So let's proceed further. Yeah. So this is what like the notes of that. That is, yeah. So secondary clarifiers used for slime production after aeration. So yeah, so it is an aerobic process which is happening. It's not an anaerobic process. And primary clarifiers. Yeah, so this we've already discussed. I mean, this is what the notes for that is. Fine. So let's go to the next question. During sewage treatment, grit is removed from sewage by the process of, yeah, so let's go.
Sedi-
Huh?
Different sedimentation.
Okay, differential sedimentation, fine. Precipitation, what is precipitation? Okay, we just like if you want to remove salt from water, there's some like an evaporative method. So we use a precipitative method for that. Then
Yeah.
stabilization, what is stabilization?
Stabilization is related to pond, I think.
Yeah, stabilization pond. So you basically have a stabilization pond, and then in that the whole process happens. And flocculation is again you use certain flocks and you create and you remove the flocks out. Fine. So yeah, so here for grit removal, what we use is differential sedimentation. So it's differential sedimentation or basically different. It's like a two-stage sedimentation. Like we call it that way also. So this is what we have learned. And why differential sedimentation? Mainly because the specific. So it for elements with different specific gravities, this is the best method that we can use. So the specific gravity of grit is different. Like it is about 2.4 to 2.6. So because of this, we can remove it using this method. So this is what we learned, like in two methods, like aerated grit chamber or a vortex grit chamber. So sorry. Yeah, so sorry, yeah. So in aerated grit chamber, so there's it's allowed to the particles are sorry the sewage is allowed to move in a circular manner, and all the particles uh, gets settled like falls down from there. So that's what happens. And here also there's a centrifugal motion which is happening, and then because of this grit gets discharged down. So that's how we remove. So yeah, so Fine. Let's proceed further. Question 10. During sewage treatment, the coarse suspended solid particles that cannot be removed by screening, skimming, or grit removal process are removed by, yeah. So this is what I was talking about. So we have the primary one, which is the screening, skimming. Now we can't do this. Then what do we do? What will be the next step?
It's activated sludge or no, activated or secondary clarification. Secondary clarification
Okay,
it is.
so so yeah, all these processes can be used, but as a sequence, secondary clarification and all comes in a much later stage. So we are talking about coarse suspended solid particles that cannot be removed by screening, skimming, or grit removal. So which means we're mainly talking about inorganic particles, right? Not organic particles. So secondary clarification mainly comes where you have some organic particles, some reactions are happening, and due to those reactions, some but some products are there which can be removed by sedimentation, right? So before all that, like before we use a secondary clarifier, we need to do a plain sedimentation because these particles through the screens we could not remove it, but through sedimentation we might be able to remove it. So the next step which comes is plain sedimentation, and after plain sedimentation, even if that doesn't work, then we go for chemical sedimentation. Chemical sedimentation also doesn't work, then we see whether we can do use some biological reactions, and then we go for secondary. So then it jumps from the primary step to the secondary step. So then we go on to the secondary, the biological reaction, secondary clarification, and activated sludge process and all comes in a much later stage. That's like again we are recirculating it and we are activating the sludge. So these are more a bit more advanced. So here what is asked is right after screening and skimming, if we cannot remove, what do we go for? So it is plain sedimentation. So, yeah, so this is what we learned over here. So yeah, so clarifiers are used to separate these suspended solids to prevent sludge banks. So you come with plain sedimentation, and then if doesn't happen, then you go for chemical sedimentation or precipitation. And yeah, so precipitation. Yeah. So secondary, yeah. So we because we were talking about secondary clarification, that usually happens after a biological reactor only. So it doesn't happen right away, and it mainly removes the bioflocculant solids which are there. Like it. So I think that you can keep in your mind that secondary is mainly used for these biological materials, whereas the first one we can use it mainly for inorganic materials if you're using the primary clarification.
Okay.
Fine. So yeah, mm, let's proceed. The dosage of coagulant required for chemical sedimentation process depends upon which of the following: pH, BOD, nature of coagulant, flocculation time, size of tank.
Except size of tank all.
Okay. Why size of tank was not important?
Size of tank not
Yeah,
required.
it's not required because coagulant you're mainly putting for the sewage or material which is there. We need to remove it. So size of tank, it doesn't matter. It's the quantity or whatever, how much amount of sewage we want to change, that is. So pH of the sewage, what is the content in it, nature of coagulant, flocculation time, all those depends. But size of tank, it does not. The dosage of coagulant does not depend on that. Yeah, correct. So it is A, B, C, and D. Fine. So yeah, so this is what we discussed in the lecture, but I'm proceeding further. Yeah. Self-purification of water bodies involve sedimentation, aeration, reduction, decomposition. Which of the following?
Sedimentation is there, aeration is there, decomposition, yes.
Reduction?
Except reduction.
Reduction is not there. Okay. Okay, let's see what happens in self-purification. So, yeah, so we have, yeah, so there's sedimentation which is happening over here. There is aeration which is happening over here. And okay, so that is shown in the figure. So there's dilution, and then there's current and sedimentation, then temperature. Like, so based on temperature it varies. So last two, So there's some oxidation which is happening. So process prevails till complete oxidation of organic matters, and then there's a reduction also which is happening. So which occurs due to hydrolysis of organic matter by anaerobic organisms. So both reduction is also there. So all of this are there. That is oxidation plus so aeration. Yeah, basically it's oxidation, reduction, decomposition, sediment. So all of them are there. Option D is the right answer. Fine. Let's proceed further. Match the following and mark the option for the correct match.
P is third one.
Trickling filter. Yeah, that is correct. P is third one. Then
Q is 2.
chemical sedimentation tank is this way. You have to add in chemicals. Yeah, and plain sedimentation tank becomes this. Yeah, that is correct. Fine. We can proceed further. Yeah, so this is the notes for that. Yeah. Which statements are incorrect regarding sequencing batch reactor? Let's go by option by option. First one, it combines all sewage treatment steps into one unit. Is that correct?
Correct.
Correct. It involves four phases of treatment, that is fill, react, decant, and idle.
No, that has 5. Fill, react, decant.
What is
After
missing?
decant, one is missing.
What is missing?
Cannot recall.
Settle. Settle is missing. You
Yeah,
need to give
said.
some time for it to, yeah, settle. And then you have idle. Fine. Last one is idle, but settle is missing. So yeah, so this is incorrect. Then during react phase, BOD is removed through oxidation process. Is that right?
No.
Why?
BOD is itself uses the oxygen for decomposition in BOD process.
Okay. So, okay, BOD is okay. Mainly, maybe BOD is not being removed, but BOD is reduced or something like that. Yeah, it's fine. So now it's effective for varying sewage flow patterns. Is this right? Varying sewage flow patterns?
Not sure.
Yeah, it is used mainly. So the reason why we use a sequencing batch filter is so that when there is variations which are there, because this is so what happens over here in one unit itself, everything is happening, right? So when there are variations in flow also, like some other processes can happen. So you're not, you can cater to those variations. So this is effective. Like the whole starting itself in our lecture, we discussed that this is more prominent when there are variations in sewage flow pattern. So this is right. So answer goes to A and sorry, B and C, right? B and C are incorrect. Fine. So this is the different ones. Yeah. So we have settle in between, that is fill, react, and then settle, and then decant and idle. And yeah, so that is what happens. But yeah, so this one option C, it's just the see, ideally it is right. The content wise, it is right only. Maybe it's the language wise, it's given as the answer is to be wrong, because over here you see that most of the BOD removal or reduction. So reduction is the right word that you're supposed to use, occurs in the react phase. So yeah, so this one actually. Okay, I think I'll get back to you regarding this. This is supposed to be right, but answer is given as wrong. So in and oxidation does happen over there. So if this is right, then I have a doubt. So I've requested for clarification that this answer which is given is wrong. So if that is the case, B is the only wrong answer. But actually there is reduction of BOD which is happening. If it is the remote, maybe it's a remote word which is creating that confusion. So let's keep it on hold. I'll put it in the discussion forum or somewhere.
Okay.
Yeah. So fine. Now let's proceed. Attached growth systems for biological treatment of sewage include,
Contact beds.
yeah, so contact beds, correct. Attached growth system itself, and we were discussing that we discussed about contact beds. So yeah, so this is what we discussed. So again, attached beds mainly require a filter medium. That you need a filtrating media where a bacterial film is formed, and that is what is done by these contact beds. Sorry, contact beds. That is, it creates that filtering media, and yeah, so usually it's made of broken stone and brick ballast. So so you're providing that space for that filtering media and bacterial film formation. Fine. So question 16. Now, an aerobic pond. Okay, so you can attempt this question.
Yeah. Q is 1.
Q is one. Anaerobic pond, yeah, it leads to methane formation, correct?
P aerobic pond is shallow depth. Flow pond is
Yeah,
R
so
is P is 2.
P is 2 and R is 3. Yeah. So, yeah, vacuolative pond, you have both aerobic and anaerobic. And so, aerobic pond has to be at a shallow depth. Yeah. So, yeah, it is correct. So, it is there in the lecture also. That is, we're discussing about why aerobic pond is at a shallow depth. So, that works out to option C. Fine. So let's proceed further. Yeah. So this is what is there in our lecture. So we have an aerobic pond, which is at a shallow depth and usually stirred to prevent anaerobic conditions in the settled sludge. So that is the reason why uh, we have it like that. And anaerobic pond, yeah. So due to methane formation, and yeah. So this is for both acts aerobically at the surface, and then there are anaerobic layers to prevent all those. So both are happening over there. Fine. So let's proceed. Dash integrate a semi-permeable membrane with a biological process. Membrane bioreactors, trickling filters, sequencing batch reactors, secondary clarifier. So it integrates a semi-permeable membrane with a biological process. So let's go by each option. Like, what does a secondary clarifier do?
I'm thinking this is the right option.
Secondary clarifier.
Yeah, due to the biological process.
See, okay. So again, clarifiers don't have much of a biological process which is happening. So clarifier, what is it? We add a clarifier or a material, and it mixes on with the already particles which are there, and it increases the weight, or basically it yeah, it helps in settling down. So clarification helps in that particle to settle down. Otherwise, which it might be a small particle which keeps floating. Now a clarifier is added on, it sticks on, the particle sticks onto the clarifier, or clarifier sticks onto the particle, so it adds and then it settles down. So that is what is happening. So actually a bioreaction does not much happen. So secondary clarifier, what it does is it removes off this what products, biological products which are there, and primary clarifier removes the other inorganic products which are there. But a clarifier itself does not link itself to any biological process which is there, right? So so it is not a clarifier. Like, it does not integrate a semi permeable membrane with a biological process. No clarifier, like that you can keep in mind. Clarifier just say whatever solid particles which are there, like dissolved or suspended solid particles which are there, clarifier just adds on to that, and it increases the weight on that, and it helps in settling down, or helps in sedimentation. That is the job of the clarifier. So this is not the one. And sequencing batch reactor, we've seen that it just combines everything into one batch, like all the 5 units which are there, it combines it into one unit only. So that linkage does not happen. So this is also not the answer. Then you have a trickling filter. So trickling filter also, we know that it's just you have something like this, and then you're putting water through that. So it's definitely not a trickling filter. Now what you have is membrane bioreactors. So let's see what membrane bioreactors are. So this is what we learned. So membrane bioreactors, these integrate a semi-permeable membrane with a biological process. So you have a membrane bioreactor and a semi-permeable membrane. So it's a combination of membrane process, like a microfiltration with a suspended growth bacterial reactor. So this is the main treatment which we use for municipal and industrial treatment plants, because it's a bio, what do you say, for a large scale treatment we use this mainly. Yeah. So, yeah. So in this, no need for sedimentation, and biological process can operate at much higher mixed liquor concentration. Fine. So the answer for this is membrane bioreactor. So this is the answer. It integrates a semi-permeable membrane with a biological process. So
Okay.
this week's lecture is a lot to remember actually, because it's all a lot of theory, and I don't know whether there's an easy method to remember that. Some points you can remember like this, but otherwise these definitions and all, I understand that it can easily slip off. But
Yeah.
yeah, fine. So this will be the last question. Dash is a process in which particles deposited on the semi-permeable membrane of membrane bioreactor surface tend to diffuse back to the reactor.
Reverse osmosis.
Okay, fine. Okay, what is reverse osmosis? So you're saying that this is reverse osmosis, like, or in simpler words, do you want to explain what reverse osmosis is?
It goes backflow, I can say.
It's a type of black flow. Okay. So
Yeah.
here we are talking about a process in which particles deposited on the semi-permeable membrane of the bioreactor tend to diffuse back. So we are talking about particles. We are not talking about flow over here, if you notice. Right.
Okay.
So it's not reverse osmosis. So reverse osmosis, as you said, it mainly or RO we normally call it. It's a water purification method which is commonly used. So if you have like, yeah, if you have something like this, there's a semi-permeable membrane over here, and here you have salt water, saline water, or you have like particles deposited, or particles are there, or basically dissolved particles are there, and through the semi-permeable membrane, when we apply pressure over here through a semi-permeable membrane, only water goes in, because this is a semi-permeable membrane. So only water goes in and you get pure water from here, whereas the particles would remain over here. So this is what do in our RO purifier also, the normal water purifiers. So that is reverse osmosis. So here we are not talking about reverse osmosis. Then you have eutrophication. So eutrophication is basically, so this is it's something which happens uh, on a surface, or yeah. What
Water.
is eutrophication?
Yeah. Yes.
Were you explaining that? Do you want to explain what eutrophication is?
Yeah, I was saying growth of plants, algae on the surface of water body.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
So
So,
yeah,
yeah.
correct, correct. It is the growth of these algae, and mainly it's the excessive growth. Like eutrophication mainly talks about you have excessive growth because of certain minerals or components which are present over there. Uh, the growth multiplies very quickly. So that is what is happening. So that is not what we are talking over here. Then we also have flow equalization. So what is flow equalization? Yeah.
I don't know this.
Okay, this we have learned in our lecture. It is very important. It is, in fact, before we start our whole process of what you say, start before we start the whole what artificial treatment processes, or whatever processes that we have learned, we have this flow equalization to know how much quantity of water. It looks at the amount of sewage that we are getting, and the amount of sewage, or whether the water body or the place where we are going to dump in water, whether it's capable to accept this much of water. So we do a flow equalization process for that, and we also look into how much should we design our sludge chambers to be. Like if you have a tank where the chamber where this water comes in, the purification happens, how much should the size of all this we design based on flow equalization. So it's like one of the preliminary steps after which the whole natural and artificial methods which we learn will come in. So this is the primary step. So that also, like with respect to this question, it doesn't have any significance, but it's a very important step in overall sewage treatment. So yeah, so that is not flow equalization. Then we have intermittent penetration. So intermittent penetration is the answer for this one. So this is what we learned about bioreactor. Let's come back. Yeah. So bioreactor. So we have pre-treatment arrangement and all. So then it is through this intermittent penetration that we have particles deposited on the membrane surface tend to diffuse back to the reactor. So that is what is happening. And then you have membrane washing, so permeate water is pumped back to the membrane. So this maybe you can just check this lecture once more, because in a very detailed manner professor is explaining how each of this is happening. So yeah, so the whole process which is happening here is intermittent penetration, permeation, not penetration, my bad. Permeation is what is happening over here. Yeah, here also it's permeation. I think I uh, pronounced it wrongly. Yeah.
It's
So,
okay.
yeah, fine. So I think we're done for this week's lecture. Yeah, so that's it. Any doubts?
No.
Fine. So thank you for
How
joining.
how
And
will be the questions in exam if
I
I
I
do
think
the assignment questions and these problem solving question? Will it be enough to pass?
to be very frank, I have no idea about it. This is not, I'm not involved in that process, so I do not know how the questions would be but yeah, ideally, from what I've heard about the students who did previous times and all, yeah, assignment questions, if you go through them, that should be good enough, because most of the questions will be along those lines only. Obviously, not the same questions, but along those lines mainly it would be. So
Yeah, to secure more than 40%.
that you will. Don't worry about it. I mean, from the way you're answering, I know you'll be able to. So you can check both the previous assignments as well as this time's assignment. So previous assignment, most of the questions which we have discussed in class, but some questions we might not have. So that is there in the you have that online link, right, where you get the previous
Yes, yes,
assignment solutions.
yes, yes.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that also you can refer. And if you have any doubts, you can put it in the discussion forum. So we'll always come and reply over there.
Okay.
Fine then. Cool. So have a have
Good
good
night.
night. So it's already evening. And yeah, see you next week. Bye bye.
Bye. Thank you.